Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today, inshallah, as we've been doing for the last 10 days of Ramadan, we will be continuing our khataras, our series of the Sahaba, inshallah. Now, today the Sahaba that I picked for this khatara is one that you may or may not know, but inshallah the story and the wisdom we find itself is enough for us to reflect and learn from, inshallah. Now, my brothers and sisters, there's a story from the life of the Prophet ﷺ that, while it's short in words, it carries significant meaning. It carries significant lessons, and it's about the companions' trust in the unseen. Jannat al-Firdaus. Their sense of sacrifice and their ability to act without hesitation. And this story is the story of Abu DahDah radiyallahu anhu, and a single tree. But more than just a tree, the story of Abu DahDah teaches us what it truly means to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promises. It's about what we're willing to give for the sake of the hereafter. And it's a reflection, a test for the believing Muslim for just how much we believe that Jannah is real. Now, to paint the picture, and inshallah I'd like for all of us to imagine and follow along, the story begins with a small disagreement between two men. Now on one hand, one of the men had a garden, and within that garden stood a palm tree. But that tree, my brothers and sisters, didn't belong to him. It in fact belonged to another man. And because of the way that the tree was placed, the way that the tree outwardly grew, it prevented the man who owned the garden to continue building his wall to protect his land. And so, my brothers, he did what any of us would do. He asked the tree owner to sell it to him, or if not, to give up the tree for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, many of us live in similar situations, in neighborhoods with neighbors whose trees might be overgrowing into our gardens, and our trees that may be overgrowing into their gardens. And so when the man asked the tree owner, he refused. And not once, my brothers, but several times. He refused to not only sell the tree, but he refused to also give it up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, after much back and forth, the man who wanted the tree gone took the issue to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet, in his mercy and his wisdom, turned to the owner of the tree and said to him, "Give him the tree, and in return you will have a tree in paradise, in Jannah." Now, before I continue with the story, I'd like for all of you to paint that picture for yourself. Imagine the Prophet ﷺ himself promising you a tree in Jannah. To give up a tree in this world, in this dunya, and have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself replacing it with a tree in Jannah. And not just any tree, my brothers, but a tree whose trunk is made of gold. A tree that's fruits never run out. A tree that shade stretches for miles. How many of us would so easily give up not one, but all of our trees if we were promised this? And yet, the man still said no. And my brothers, this is where the real story begins. Because at the time of this altercation, of this disagreement, there was another man listening from afar. And his name was none other than Abu DahDah. And he was one of the Ansar. Now when he heard the Prophet ﷺ mention that a tree in Jannah, in paradise, could be so easily promised, he stood up and asked, "Ya Rasulullah, if I buy that tree and give it to him, will I have that tree in Jannah?" And he said yes. And that, my brothers, was all that Abu DahDah radiyallahu anhu needed to hear. Because then he went home and he made the tree owner an offer that he couldn't refuse. He said, "Do you know my orchid? The one with 600 palm trees, a house and a well." My brothers, everyone at the time in Medina knew what Abu DahDah was referring to. It was one of the most valuable, one of the most beautiful properties in all of Medina. And Abu DahDah, knowing this, knowing what his property was valued at, still said, "I will give it to you all for that one tree." Now to the owner of the tree, he was stunned beyond his belief. One tree in exchange for 600, in exchange for a home, for a well. To him, it made absolutely no sense. Who would ever give up their fortune for a single tree? But to Abu DahDah, he wasn't thinking about the values of his tree, of his home, of his well. He was thinking about the reward promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And so the story continues when the man accepted the deal. And Abu DahDah was the rightful owner of the tree. Abu DahDah then returned to the Prophet ﷺ and informed him that the tree had been given. The Prophet then smiled and said, Abu DahDah, how many clusters of dates are now waiting for you in paradise? In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ says, Abu DahDah, how many shady trees in Jannah are for you? My brothers and sisters, this is the beauty for giving for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His infinite kindness and His infinite mercy, never just gives you what you give up. He multiplies it. He rewards your small efforts with things that you can never imagine being possible in this dunya. Now the story doesn't end there. Because after this, after telling the Prophet ﷺ, Abu DahDah goes home to tell his own family. And when he arrived to the gate of his own home, he called DahDah, come out, for I have sold the orchid. And she asks, for what? To which he replies, for a tree in paradise, in Jannah. Now without pause, without hesitation, she responds, what a profitable trade, O Abu DahDah. My brothers, take a look at her response. No hesitation, no fear, no doubt. And better yet, no concern for their comfort in this dunya. DahDah was just as certain as he was that this trade, this offer, was worth it. And so I ask you, what can we take away from this story? And there are 5 quick and brief main points that I'll leave you with today, inshallah. Number 1, that true belief in the unseen leads to real actions. My brothers, Abu DahDah radiallahu anhu didn't need a written contract. He didn't ask for proof. The Prophet ﷺ said the word and he took action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, describing the people of taqwa, الَّذِينَ يَؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the unseen. Because my brothers, Abu DahDah didn't see the tree in Jannah, but he believed in it more than he believed in the trees that he already owned. Number 2, Abu DahDah gave what he loves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Ali Imran, you will never attain righteousness until what you give from that of what you love. My brothers, Abu DahDah didn't give what was extra to him. He gave the best, his most valuable asset. Because he understood that real investment wasn't in his property, wasn't in what he owned in this dunya. It was the pleasures and blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised him in the akhirah. Number 3, Abu DahDah's sacrifice was quiet. He didn't make an announcement to those around him. He didn't wait for applause. His actions were sincere, purely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He heard the call and he responded immediately. My brothers, how many of us look for the first opportunity to share our good deeds? To boast about what we've done, what we sacrificed for the so-called sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's the legacy of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That quiet sincerity and that immediate action that they take. Moving on to number 4. My brothers, look at the heart of his wife. She never questioned his decision. She didn't panic. She didn't hesitate. She was right there with him. Because the entire household was focused on the hereafter, Jannah. And that's a reminder to all of us. Because when a family is united in their pursuit of Jannah and their hearts are focused on something eternal, then this dunya sacrifices become easy. Giving up your property for a promised tree in Jannah become easy. And last but not least, the story of Abu DahDah refines what a good trade looks like. Because in this dunya, in this world that we live in, my brothers, value is measured by what? Numbers, returns, income, growth. But in a world of the Sahaba, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes, value is measured by His reward. So what Abu DahDah did looks irrational from a business perspective, but from the lens of the akhirah, the hereafter, it was the most profitable trade a person could make. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even tells us in Surah Al-Tawbah, indeed Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their wealth in exchange for paradise. So what does this mean for us? Maybe we don't have orchids or massive assets to give up, but we have time, we have energy, we have comfort. And we can still make trades every day with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you choose fajr over sleep, when you hold your tongue instead of responding in anger, when you give in charity without anyone knowing, when you serve someone without expecting anything in return, all of these are trees, my brothers, being planted for you in Jannah. Your Jannah isn't just something that you'll see later, inshallah. It's something that you build with every word, every action, every quiet moment of sincerity. And so I remind myself first, and then I ask you all, what tree can I plant in my Jannah today? What am I holding onto in this dunya that's stopping me from achieving and having something greater? The story of Abu DahDah, my brothers, isn't just a moment in the seerah. It's a mindset. It's a way of living where we're constantly investing in the unseen, constantly giving for something better, constantly remembering that the things we let go for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are never lost. They're simply just moved to a place where they'll last forever, Jannat al-Firdaus. And so I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us like Abu DahDah. May He give us the faith to trust His promises and the courage to act on them. May He place our hearts in the hereafter and make every step we take towards Him. And may He enter us into Jannat al-Firdaus together under the shades of the tree that we plant today, one sincere act at a time. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.